Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Limitless Ones podcast. I'm very excited about this. I have Terry LeClair on the show today. This is the #1 episode as I've rebranded my podcast. And for you guys that don't know, Terry LeClair was the first friend I made when I moved from New Brunswick to Barrie, Ontario 9 years ago. And I can't describe to you how grateful I am for the opportunities, Terry, that you gave me. Not only were you the first friend I made, you convinced me to go to Polish Personal Training to start my business. You hooked me up with Lorenzo to help me build my first website when I had very little capital. You introduced me and gave me an announcement on social media, which converted me to $9,000 in sales on my first day through your power and your networking in the real estate market. You were a friend with me all along. You encouraged me. You gave me advice. And I've been forever grateful for that. I think that you're a huge contributor to the launch of my business and my reputation and my network here in Barrie. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you did. I don't know if you know how much it meant to me, but it was the exact thing that I needed to give me the confidence and the network to get started. And my life and my trajectory since that moment has been astronomical. And think you've seen it happen. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, bro.
Oh man, you know what? I couldn't ask for a better intro, and it's my pleasure to be with you here on your first podcast. And I can only take a small piece of that credit, brother.
Yeah,
it's all you. It truly is. I just, when I looked across that gym and I saw you for the first time, I honestly, I don't think I've ever seen anybody in Barrie look like you, this intimidating force. But I saw this. I literally saw this shy guy, had no idea who you were, where you were from.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get into that because I knew there was something powerful behind all of that stuff.
Oh man, I really appreciate it. And I can't even remember the introduction. I just remember the conversation starting, and I said to myself a couple times, I think he must have just said hi to me or something. And I can't even remember how the conversation started, but here we are all these years later. We've got so much to talk about. And for anybody listening to this is an organic, genuine conversation because, bro, since the day we spoke in LA Fitness, when you decided that you were going to go to California, we haven't really had a deep conversation minus messaging back and forth when we were both in Hawaii, which we never got a chance to meet up, unfortunately. But this is going to be like a raw, organic, emotional conversation. I got a little bit of tears in my eyes right now because when I told that intro, my life has changed so much spiritually, financially, relationship. And that was like, when I try to think of my story, Terry, it really starts from that moment on. Yes, my other part of my story is the foundation in my earlier 20s. But when I really think about who I am as a person, I can't even recognize the person that showed up in here in Ontario to who I am now in the direction that I'm going in. So it's an emotional experience to look at you and talk to you because you were like the first person that I met that gave me so much support and love. So you helped me plant the seed. You know what I mean? Like you helped me plant the seed and then I went to work and kind of watered it. So
100%.
The biggest question I got to ask though is how is life in California, man? Like you can't coming from like central northern Ontario to being in California. And I'm so excited to hear more about how life is there and everything. But how is like the weather, the change, the culture, the food, all that stuff, minus the virus right now. But how's your experience been?
Man, I can't, I should probably say it sucked. It's terrible. I hate it. And all my friends back home that are listening to this are going to hate me even more. But no, honestly, part of the reason why I wanted to come to California was for opportunity, and the other was for the lifestyle. And it has been honestly a blessing. I play, many of my friends back home know that I play, beach flag football every week, and that's a big part of my life now, to stay in shape and to hang out with the young kids still, and get in the sun and get my feet in the sand, which I absolutely love. I've always been attracted to the ocean, and I know you feel the same way. You're a big Hawaii fan, and I'm a big, I like that kind of rugged coastline. As a kid and as an adult bringing my children to the ocean, it was always Florida. And that Florida coastline is beautiful, and I'm not going to, say anything negative about it, but it's humid and it's, flat. When I came to California for the first time and I saw that rugged coastline, which you're used to seeing in Maui, and also the lack of humidity. So you can be 80, 90 degrees and it can, no humidity basically. That was kind of it for me. So I'm loving it. I love the healthy lifestyle. I love the fact that, you can stay active. Like yesterday, I went for a mountain bike ride in the canyon, which is like 3 blocks from my house. It's a huge natural park canyon. Played beach football on Saturday, and our gym, we can stay open because we're outside, and I can work out every day outside every day because of the weather and the climate. You know, the coldest it gets is maybe 50 degrees at 5 in the morning. So maybe 45 if it's really a cold day. And honestly, at 45 degrees, I'm freezing. So all you Canadians would be laughing at me because you'd be in shorts, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sitting in freezing. So no,
yeah.
it's been a great transition. I've been welcomed with open arms. To be honest with you, I'm very fortunate to land at a company that I've been able to make an impact on, and they've been able to make an impact on my life. And yeah, it's been a great transition. I've really enjoyed it.
I'm excited to hear more about that. But first off, do you got a spare bedroom?
You know what? I actually do. I have two. One is my wife's closet, and the other one is a spare bedroom for extra special guests. So yes,
Okay,
I
so
have a spare bedroom.
I'm gonna call Doug Ford tonight and see if there's any chance if I can hop on a flight and come visit you. Maybe you know what? Worst case scenario, maybe I'll come next. I'll come in the fall, right? I'll come visit you.
Yeah, Nat's welcome anytime.
Yeah.
With you, I'll have to check my calendar.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, you check the calendar and let me know. I'll stay hopeful. Everything I've got in my life, I've been hopeful for. So I'm definitely going to come see you on a serious note. I haven't experienced, I've been to California only flying over, but I haven't really got to experience it. And I would be very grateful to come and obviously stay and do some stuff and get to hang out with you and get to see what your life's all about there and meet some of the friends you've made and stuff and tell them who you really are and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it would be exciting to come to California, man. So I got to start off this by getting people to understand not only why I wanted you to be my first guest, which I've already described that, but a little bit of the stuff I want to pull out of you is about the real estate market, about business. You've achieved some amazing things, and I know this. Tell me a little bit about young Terry LeClair coming up to get to where you're at. I know you played hockey. I know you grew up. I don't know if you grew up in Barrie. I'm not sure about that. I know you've always lived a health and fitness style life, and then you got into real estate. You've been a great speaker. You've done some different things entrepreneurially. Just give us the quick story coming through to get not to where you are now, but to roughly where I met you, and then I'll take it from there.
Yeah. I moved to Barrie when I was 16 years old. Now I did have a small stint. My dad left when I was 11, so we had a little small stint in Barrie for a few years. So grade 3, 4, and 5 I spent in Barrie. Then my dad being a gypsy, we moved out west for a year and then moved back, and that's when my dad left. But then I moved back when I was 16 to play for the Barrie Colts, actually. So I came back at 16 to play with the Barrie Colts. Finished up my high school in Barrie at Innisdale, and I basically stayed in Barrie. When I finished high school, I was going to go into law and security, funny enough. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, they pulled my OSAP, my student funding, at the last minute because my mom was dating a guy who they found out was actually living in our house, and they wouldn't give me the student loan. So I had to go right into the workforce. So I was 18, couldn't go to college, couldn't afford to pay for myself to go to college. So I got into the car business. So a lot of my close friends and even friends know that I was in the car business for 10 years. I sold cars for the first 5 years. And while I was selling cars, I actually went back to Georgian College and I got my automotive marketing degree. And
Very cool.
yeah, I paid for myself. So I was working full time and going to school full time. And then 5 years in to the car business, I became a sales manager and then a general manager. And then I had to get out of the car business. It was just too much for me to work with those car dealers. Those guys were just tough to work for. And
Yeah.
I got into the real estate business. I had $20,000 in my pocket, and I had two young children, probably 4 and 1. And I knew I had to make it. And I put my $20,000 into my marketing, and I put my boots on the bricks, and I hit it. And I was very fortunate. I was able to capture the market at a really opportune time. I was able to market myself, and yeah.
So it sounds like you losing the government grant or government loan was a blessing in disguise, because it kind of kicked you in the ass to get your sales experience. And then the selling cars is tough, man. I mean, it's kind of like a cold sale all the time, because people are they're shopping around, they're just kicking tires. So that was probably a great experience, because you're just interacting with, doctors, lawyers, construction people. So it's kind of setting you up for the real estate. And then you got in the real estate. Do you feel like you got in the real estate market in Barrie at the right time? Because since I've been here, it's been on a crazy trajectory, but you were in part of that ride long before I even came along. So do you feel like that was part of your success? Because you were one of the most, if not the most successful real estate agent. When I came into town, you were at that point. So you
Yeah.
may be modest about that, but tell me about that transition, like obviously coming out of that, and then how fast was the ride? Like from the day you got in your real estate license, put the 20K into marketing, what did that ride look like?
That ride was really a steep incline. One of the things that people that have actually worked with me as team members and so on know this. I'm a very system person. I like my systems and processes, and I like to be very organized. So when I was getting my real estate license back then, you had to take 3 courses, and then you had 2 years to get 3 one-week courses under your belt before you were fully licensed. So you had 2 years to get those articling courses, they called it, and they were 1 week each course. Well, I had a week off in between each one of my first 3 phases before I got my license. So I took those courses on my weeks off. So when I actually got my license, I was fully licensed. I didn't have to go back to school. So I took the initiative to actually take those courses. So I'd never sold a piece of real estate. I hadn't even listed a house before, didn't even have my real estate license, and I was already doing the articling. So I had to read a lot of extra things to actually get the knowledge to kind of go through those courses. So I came out with my full ticket in my hand. And then I also did things like I set up my database prior to me getting my license. And I was so organized that I had a box full of introductory letters with my business cards and everything, stamped, signed, sealed, knowing I was getting my license in November of '94. I had them all ready to go in a box. So when I got my license in my hand, I could just walk down to, I don't know, it was Quick Copy or one of those places. And I actually I forget what it was, but a place, a mail center, and I just dropped my box off and they mailed it, and out of the gate I came. So I was just all about getting set up. That's one thing that I train to this day, and I've trained for 27 years now in real estate, is just setting up that foundation is so crucial to having a strong business, right? Is setting up that foundation. I was very fortunate to just learn that on my own. I don't know how. I guess partially just taking courses while I went through school and while I was in the car business, just taking all those extra sales training and business courses helped me kind of come to that realization.
Right. And you did it before. We're in the information age right now. I can jump on YouTube and get access to so much content. And you were doing it at a different time where you had to read books and network and talk to people and hope. I mean, if you did get on the internet, you probably wouldn't be a whole lot of, it'd just be some videos and not as much as out there as like all the training courses and the structure. I mean, you had like the leaders doing training and stuff like that. Those type of people in real estate, but it was a different time when you were coming up, right? Like it's so different. Door knocking probably works. So let's talk a bit about that while we're on that topic, because there's going to be, you're still a legend when it comes to the real estate market locally and obviously where you're at. And I'm excited to talk about the difference in the markets between here and in the States. Let's talk about the difference in the strategies, what you used to market back then, and what of those that would still work to this day that's a foundation you would recommend a young real estate agent to still stick to, and what should be left behind, and where's the direction you see marketing and branding going with real estate all over the world, because that's kind of the same kind of thing, right?
Right. So back in the day when I started, let me make it perfectly clear. There was no internet basically, right? Like we had pagers. We didn't have cell phones. Literally, we had pagers, no cell phones. So there was no internet. So you weren't able to scale your marketing efforts, especially cost effectively. There were really 2 modes of marketing. There was print marketing, right, in different formats, and then of course there was your sphere of influence. They call it sphere of influence, your network, right? And then there was billboards and brand, out on the street, out in the real world, right? So I was very fortunate because I was one of the first people that and I was made fun of, to be honest with you. Like I had a Dodge Caravan, I'll never forget it. And I put my face on it with my name on it and my company name on it. So I was the first person in town to actually brand, somebody on a vehicle, right? Like now you can wrap them and you can do really cool things, but that just wasn't a thing. If I showed you pictures of how rudimentary it was back then, it was ugly looking, but at least it was something. And I was fortunate to work on Bayfield Street, up by the National Sports, and I parked in their parking lot and I backed my van in every day. So I got there at 7 in the morning every day. And I tried to leave my van there as much as I possibly could before I went out on appointments, just so I got that traffic. And then I got big billboards, and then I got the garbage can billboards all over town. So I strategically put my face all over the place. So when I train people, I tell them you have 2 options. You have boots on the bricks or pay to play. Boots on the bricks is sweat equity. You're going to be knocking on doors. You're going to be walking and knocking, right? Dropping. And then the other one is pay to play, which means you're just going to be mailing, billboards, advertising, radio, all these other things that you pay for. And then you get the leads based on your, your marketing expense, your marketing expenditures.
Yeah. Yeah. So now going into, first of all, people hate to have their phone number rang. No one wants to answer the phone. Someone knocks on the door, they jump behind the cabinets. Who the hell is that? Because like I'm 37, but even when I grew up, people used to show up at my parents' house and mom would bring on some food and get the tea and the coffee going, and they were happy to see you. Now someone knocks on the door, they're like, what are you doing, right?
Yep.
And now we have this little thing that is probably the greatest invention for an entrepreneur. I feel like we have it easier than anybody's ever had it to be a solopreneur or an entrepreneur. What do you think is a young real estate agent coming up and they have minimal amounts of money to spend on marketing? Where would they put their dollars and their time? I have my opinion on that, and I assume it'll be the same as you, but I want to hear what you think of that.
Yeah, you know what? You're probably going to be a little surprised with my answer, because I was a pay to play guy, right? I was fortunate. Like I said, I came out of the gate with 20 grand, which wasn't really a lot of money, but I was able to get some sales really quickly because of that initial investment through my branding and my marketing. And I sat a lot of open houses. So that's kind of the boots on the bricks, right? And between my marketing and my boots on the bricks, I was able to generate a lot of revenue, which I put back into my business with marketing. But the challenge that you have now is marketing. It's really hard to compete with some of the big players. And we know the names in Barrie right now. They're good friends of mine. It's hard to compete with those people now in the marketing space. So now you have to be creative. And of course, social media is one of your ways to be creative, but that's also getting very noisy, right? That space is extremely noisy. And what can you do to capture people's attention? So what I'm training agents to do right now, and I'm even training my staff, because I'm now part of a title and escrow company down here as well. It's a sister company that I'm working with, one of our companies. And I'm training title reps and real estate agents to actually get their boots on the bricks again, right? And actually do door knocking, cold calling. But it's changing the messaging now, because I've created some compelling messaging sequences and different strategies on the messaging, because it's all about the messaging now. You have to have a very interrupting message to capture the person's attention now, or it's not going to work. And the great thing about that is you can leverage that postcard that you're mailing out or you're dropping off, or the conversation you're having at the door. You can actually translate that into a social media post that captures people's attention and gets people to connect and go on to get more information. So it's kind of a combination of everything. It's not just social media. And the agents that sit back and think they can sit on their computer and rely only on social media, I think they're going to have a challenge, right? Because you have to build that type of relationship, but it's not just building the relationship. It's differentiating yourself and creating a value proposition that others aren't doing, right? And that's all in the messaging. And that's a lot bigger conversation. And, trainers get paid thousands of dollars to do that. So unless we're putting the ticker on for, I can do some training as well if we want right now. No, I'm teasing.
Yeah, we'll save that. We'll save that for another day. No, I find it very interesting, because I think that it's a different type of market than anything, because I think people are so emotionally attached to their houses. For some people, it's the greatest investment they ever made. Their kids grew up in it. So they're not just selling their house, they're selling their life, they're selling their story, they're selling their emotion, they're selling the largest investment. And for them to choose you, I mean, that's a big deal. I think if someone chooses you to sell a house that they're emotionally tied to. So I'm very curious about that. So let's move into what's the main difference between the Canadian market and the American market when it comes to, pricing, how houses sell, all that stuff. Is there a huge difference when houses sell, the cost of the market and the ups and downs in the market, is it similar or is it quite a bit different?
That's a great question. There is a lot more similarities than there are differences. Okay. I would say that the biggest difference, I would say, is probably in the actual transaction itself. The transaction here is very complicated with regards to different disclosures and all these things, because it's a very litigious state, California.
Yeah.
People are always trying to sue you. So like our offers, agreements of purchase and sale are like this thick, right? In comparison to, one back home could be 5 pages long. Yeah. Here, you really don't have a firm sale and a closed sale until it's closed. It's almost like people can back out almost at any time. So you can get all ready to sell and you could have somebody bail on you at the last minute, unlike at home where you give them 5 or 7 days to get their financing in order, their home inspection in order, and then it's firm. They call it firm back home, right? Where you guys are.
Yeah.
Here, there really isn't. It's kind of firm, but it's good luck trying to sue somebody. Back home, you'd really, you'd do well in a suit if somebody left you hanging at closing. So those are the kind of the big differences. The market themselves, where I live, like the community that I live in, and I live in, so I'm standing right now in Laguna Beach, in an office in Laguna Beach that I'm using during COVID here, and I'm looking out at the ocean actually that way.
Very cool.
But I am where I live is in a little community called Aliso Viejo, just over the canyon. So behind me, behind the building, and a few rows up, there's a canyon. It's a big natural park, and I live on the other side of that. So about 3 miles as the crow flies. In Laguna Beach right now, average sale price is probably $2.5 million, right? It's a different marketplace. Like anything coastal's crazy. And that's for a small little shack. You move into my neighborhood and you could get very close to pricing like you'll see in Barrie, right? Barrie pricing I've been kind of watching it. It's like, it absolutely blows my mind what's going on in Barrie. I don't understand it, to be honest with you. But pricing is extremely similar. You get a 2,000 square foot regular 4-bedroom, 3 or 2.5 bath house is probably, 800,000, $700,000 to $800,000. So not too far off what you guys are paying in Barrie. But we have the environment. So the pricing model is the same. The listing presentation that an agent would go on is the same. Buyer consultations, all those things that you're using, right? Down here, the consumer uses Zillow. Back home, the consumer uses realtor.ca. Right. So there is but that's owned by the realtors, basically. We're down here, Zillow is a private company. It's ultra competitive down here. There's probably a lot more realtors per capita. And it's crazy what they do down here as well. Like, because it's so competitive, I'll watch realtors go into a house and actually bring their mops and their brooms, and they'll actually clean things. They'll help the homeowner paint. Now, I know there's some realtors back home that do that. It's something that I would never do. It's not part of my business model. But if you're that desperate to get business, again, desperation sometimes requires that, right? So the market itself is similar and different in ways. The one thing that is different is the closing process. Back home and in actually other states, the closing process, when you go to close your property, back home you use attorneys, and the attorney closes checks with title and does all these things and wraps everything up. Here we have title companies and we have escrow officers. So escrow is like the attorney, but they're not attorneys. So there's fees involved in all that stuff. So where an attorney might charge you $1,500, here your escrow fee is $1,800, and then your title fee is another $1,800 or $2,200. So the fees are higher here as well when it comes to closing the transaction. It's just really clunky and cumbersome, that whole transaction process, right?
Wow.
But houses are houses and salespeople are salespeople.
Yeah.
They're doing the same things. They're doing the same social media marketing. They're doing the same prospecting. Everybody prospects basically the same way. It's just that closing process is different. And again, it's very litigious here, right?
Yeah. I know that there's a big, you hear a lot of people say that you have like massive multi-million-dollar houses and then homeless people right outside it in California. Do you experience that much, or is that just something you kind of like you hear Joe Rogan talks about it, a lot of people talk about it, are leaving California, but maybe that's just certain points. So you're down there, like you said, foot on the brick kind of thing. Do you see that at all? Like, is people being affected with the value of their houses because of this?
Some neighborhoods. We're fortunate that a lot of the homeless, like LA is crazy. Like I was up in LA, I took my bike. I love riding from Redondo Beach right up into Venice. It's like a 14-mile bike ride along the bike path, right along the ocean. It's spectacular. I love it. And I did that a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't been to Venice for probably about 8 months, right? Probably just around the beginning of COVID. And Venice is always crazy. Like it's crazy. It's a place I'll take you. I have a little track that I take people on, a little route, and I take people on when they come here. And Venice is one of those places you got to see, because it's just a lot of crazy people, and it's nutty. But the homeless people in Venice it's like times 10 lately. So anybody in that area, and Venice was an up and coming community, right? Downtown LA in the homeless district. That is what it is, and that was never up and coming. But Venice was an up and coming area, and that's probably been stagnated with regards to upward mobility and pricing and so on. Luckily enough, in Orange County, we have little pockets, but Orange County is much different than LA, right? It's a much
Yeah.
more subdued, less homeless, a total kind of different vibe down here. But
Yeah.
driving through the canyon to get here, it's like this little kind of country road almost, and you do see like little homeless camps down in the gullies. So you do see it, but it's not so much around the residential communities, right? So
Yeah.
we're pretty
Yeah.
fortunate.
Well, it'd be a great place to be homeless, that's for sure. The weather's amazing there. So
Yeah.
let's move into something that I think everybody's going to be interested in, and I really think that you're somebody that could probably give a great perspective on this. Is, do you feel that everything that's going on right now with this virus, do you think this is going to have a huge impact on the market? Here, things are skyrocketing and taking off. Like, there's people getting $100,000, $200,000 over asking price. How long can that hold? And do you see on the other side of this, whether it's 6 months, 1 year, this being something that hugely affects the market in a downward spiral?
You know, that's like having a crystal ball, right?
Of course.
I honestly, I can tell you that here, and I think probably back home, part of the fuel is the affordability, right? Just interest rates are so low, and they've been continuously going down here in the US. So that's one thing that's really fueling the market here in the US is the downward pressure on the interest rates. But also, we don't have enough new builds, right? So that's the other challenge, is there's just more people coming into the state. Now we're seeing an exodus, unfortunately, but there's more people were coming into the state, and there's just not enough properties to support them. Part of the reason is because a lot of the homes, like if you looked at, I don't know what the averages are, but a lot of the homes are also rentals, right? So there's a lot of rentals. So those properties are not available for home purchase. So it's really minimizing the opportunity. So we have a supply issue, just like you guys have a supply issue, and
Yeah.
that's always going to drive pricing. When that starts to slow down, is you're going to see that slow down when the interest rates start to bump up and affordability starts to become an issue.
Yeah.
We don't foresee that down here, but that obviously depends on what Trudeau does with the economy up there and how that plays out. You start to see some big things happen negatively with jobless rates and stuff like that starting to climb. They could start bumping interest rates up, which then affects affordability. Everything starts to slow down a little bit. So we see 2021 being better than 2020. And interestingly enough, during COVID, it was our best year, both in our real estate company and our title and escrow company. It was our best year. Now, we saw obviously a big dip in March and April, but we far more made up for it for the rest of the year. So, and again, what's driving that is people having to stay home, realizing they need more space. They need that at-home office. They need that little bit more space to get away from family, to have that, that more comfort. So we're seeing that, but who knows where the market's going to go.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the one good thing is, and a lot of people might not know this, but because in Canada, we were kind of isolated from this, right? I remember in 2008, we saw like about a 3 or 4 month blip, and those people that were back in the business then will understand and remember that little bit of a blip. We saw a 5% decrease in home prices during a 3 to 5 month period in 2008. Down here, it was catastrophic. Like it was catastrophic. Like they saw 30, 40, 50% decreases in pricing. And that was all based on bad loans, basically. I won't get into the details, but it was based on bad loans. We will never see that again here in the US because they've tightened up all loan acceptance regulations and so on. So you can't do what you did back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, 10 years ago. So you'll never see that depression happen again. And in the last 6 recessions that have happened in the US, and I would assume that it's similar in Canada, home prices only went down once, and that was during the 2008 recession. Every other recession, they stayed neutral or went up a little bit. So even if we hit a recession, it doesn't mean that home prices are going to go down. And over the long term, over a 10-year period, you could take any 10-year period on the calendar from 1950, there's a study being done right now, from 1950 to today, any 10-year block, and I'm sure this holds true in Canada, home values have never gone down. So the trick is just buy and hold. If you get into a recessionary type environment, just hold on to it and you will come out of it and you will not lose money. right?
Yeah.
So
At some point.
that's the key. Yeah, at some point, right?
So one other thing on this, I have a couple people that I've talked to about this, is the baby boomers affecting the real estate market, meaning we have this huge population of baby boomers that are looking to move into retirement homes that are going to be dying off, and they're going to be dumping their houses. Is this a conversation you guys have at all, of this being highly populated, like overpopulating the market, and so many houses becoming available and the kids trying to dump them off because they just want the money and they already have their own house? Is this in conversation? Because it's something I hear a lot coming up.
Yeah, you know what? We call them empty nesters.
Yeah.
So they're empty nesters, right? Because an
Yeah.
empty nester is classified basically as somebody that's in like a 2,500 square foot home, that's been in the home for 30 years. And we know we think, or we know their kids are gone or should be gone. Maybe they're still living with them, but they should be gone, right? And they have this big house that they need, and it's a 2-story. That's what we call an empty nester. That's actually a lead strategy. One of the things that I've mastered over the last number of years is generating leads. And that's something that I'm really mastering even more now. And that's something that I train agents on today, is how to generate empty nester leads, and going after that target audience, because there's a couple things happening. They are moving down, of course, to single level properties. They're also moving into condominiums. So they might not be moving into retirement homes. Because remember, some of these empty nesters are 55, 60 years old. They're still vibrant people. They don't want to go into, into a retirement home. But there are retirement communities. One of the things that Barrie and many communities are lacking is those retirement communities, because people are more vibrant now, right? And as people get more healthy, and you know this, you see this now, and you'll be seeing more of this. You know, I love watching your posts, man, because I keep looking at those kids that go to your gym, and I'm thinking they are setting themselves up for longevity and a great life. And those kids, they're not going to be moving into retirement homes, man. They're going to be moving into really cool communities with pickleball and volleyball and lawn bowling and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's going to change. But those empty nesters, they're also leaving the state, because they've got their equity tied up in their property. And even back home, they're gonna want to take that equity and live off some of that equity, right? Here they can move to Arizona, Texas, and have a no state tax state, and they can buy a property that maybe their property here is worth 1.2 million. They can literally buy something better in Arizona for $350,000. That's bigger and better, right? So a big drastic difference in valuation and pricing. One of the things, and going back to something we talked about, or you talked about a little bit earlier, is kind of marketing. I will tell anybody that wants to listen, if they're trying to engage an audience, and it doesn't matter what business you're in. You're in the gym business, you can be in the selling shoe business, you can be in a real estate business. The one thing I always train salespeople, right, on is this: the number one key when you're trying to market to people is to get into the conversation that's going on in their head, right? Don't assume the conversation. Think about them. For example, let's use the empty nesters. I'll give you an example. An empty nester, what's their challenge, right? Like, the guy's 65 years old. He's got a bad hip, right? Bad knees, and he's living in a 2-story that's 3,000 square feet. What's the conversation going on in his head? I need a single level property. Market that opportunity to him. Show him how you can help get him into a single level property, right? There's another conversation going on that, sick and tired of paying the high cost of California living, right? Or need cash out of your property to live a fruitful life, right? Get into the conversation that they're thinking. It's a totally different mindset. You've got to create an interrupting message that gets into the conversation. In your case, right? Are you tired of having low energy and not being as virile as you used to be? Come on into the gym and let me show you how to get that, up, or whatever that might be. But you got to get into that conversation. And empty nesters are a great target for anybody. And if I was to get back into real estate right now, honestly, because of my age and my demographic, that would be something I would lean towards going after, is those empty nesters.
Beautiful. So this is probably the most important question I think we'll have in this podcast, and it's kids. Your generation, my parents' generation, even in my generation, if you didn't buy a house by the time you're mid-20s or 30s, you were kind of looked at as a failure. It's like the biggest investment of your life. You have to save up and put your money into it. Now the message coming out from a lot of new, coaches, entrepreneurs, real estate leaders is, until you've maxed out your ability to invest in yourself, until you've maxed out your ability to create income and investing in yourself, don't bother buying a house. But if you try to tell that to someone that's 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, they're going to continually tell you to get in the market. I think it's a bit of a gray area because depending on the person and the skill sets and where you're going with your life would dictate where you put that money. How important do you think it is for a young person to have that in the back of their mind to buy and to get into the market?
Let me answer the question by making this comment. How many of you that are listening to this podcast today, and you, Ryan, how many of you know someone who's wealthy? We all know somebody who's wealthy. How many of those wealthy people that we know have made much of their wealth or some of their wealth through real estate? Probably most, right? Mm-hmm. So real estate is an absolutely crucial component to your wealth building strategy. That's one thing that I wish that I would have done better, right? If I could go back, if somebody said to me, if you were to ask me a question today, what would you change if you went back, right? One of the things I would say is I would have invested more heavily in real estate at a younger age, and I wouldn't have sold off the real estate that I owned. I would have kept, because I did buy real estate, but I sold it off. I bought it, kept it for a while, flipped it and sold it. But I also would have made a bigger portfolio. Now, thinking out of the box, Ryan, this is one thing that, we need to do as, these kids that are coming up. And when I say kids, 25, 30, 35-year-olds, right? If they don't have the down payment, if you don't have all the assets to get into that house, create an opportunity, an investment opportunity, right? Go to your parents if they have a little bit of extra equity. Go to your rich uncle, your rich aunt, your rich grandparents, or a family friend and put an opportunity on the floor for them and say, hey, I want to buy a house. Why don't we share in this opportunity? We know that this house is going to go from 500,000 to 700,000 over the next 10 years, right? If you help me with the down payment, you put up 50%, I put up 50%, I'll live in it, I'll look after it, but we own it together. And your 50% of your deposit, when we go to sell it, you're going to get that back, of course, and we split the equity, right? Whatever that equity is, we'll split it. So it becomes a business relationship, right? But that's a great way to get into a property without having to put all of your money. If you don't have a lot of money, then that's a great way, or putting all of your money into it and spreading your money out to maybe buy other opportunities. I did that with a couple of friends, a couple of really dear friends where they didn't have anywhere to go live, but they had a little bit of cash. And actually I didn't even take their cash because I had told them just to keep it. And I actually put the down payment on the property and I let them live in it as basically owner occupants, tenants. Yeah. And then we split the equity at the end of it. And I got my down payment back with an interest on top of that, right? So I charged like 6% interest on top of my down payment for those 4 or 5 years. And I got my money back with a little bit of interest. And then we split the equity. And I didn't have to worry about the property. They never called me. They never, unless there's a major expense. But think out of the box. But I would definitely, I do believe investing in yourself, personal development and all that kind of thing. But I strongly believe that you do need to get into real estate and tie yourself to real estate at some point. But you got to watch the market, right? If you think the market's going to bubble, and when I say bubble, Barrie's been an anomaly for me because it's, if you start seeing double-digit growth for multiple years, at some point that's just got to change. I honestly thought it was going to change 3 years ago. I thought, okay, this bubble is going to burst, but it continues to grow. And, we know what's fueling that. It's people from the GTA market coming up because there's not enough properties in the GTA and the pricing there is they're outpriced. So at some point that's all going to shift. I don't know when. There you go. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that that's a fucking fabulous answer, honestly. And I do believe that that question has been too black and white and not gray enough because some people are going to make their $70,000 a year. They don't have a high income skill. They have no desire to go out on their own and do anything. That person should 100% invest right away into real estate, in my opinion. If it's somebody you see with great potential, that's like your son that has, with his, he's great with photography and videography. He could continually invest in himself and go from charging $200 a video up to thousands of dollars a video. And that instead of taking his $50,000 putting in a house, he could probably make a high income skill and then have a few $100,000 in a couple of years. So it's kind of a mixed variable, but the end result is something like 90% of billionaires made their first $1 billion in real estate, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to win in real estate no matter where you're at. Unless you're from New Brunswick, where I'm from, I wouldn't recommend buying a house there. That'll probably shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, you know what? Buy and hold. And the other thing too, with regards to, like I mentioned, go to family, friends, but you can also put what we call syndications together, right? So like if I was living in Barrie and I know Ryan's doing okay and he's got an extra 10 grand and I know Betty's got, 10 grand and George has got 10 grand, we put a group together and let's go buy a property. right? And then we let the equity grow. As that equity grows, we pull out a little bit of that equity and we go buy another property. And you create those syndication partnerships where you're leveraging other people. You're mitigating your risk, but you're also leveraging other people's money. So you can actually get a pool. You might get a smaller piece, but as you grow it, you have a bigger pie. I'd rather have a small piece of a big pie than a big piece of no pie, right?
100%. 100%.
Right.
That's the same as in business, right? I'd rather roll with a bunch of people and have a small percentage of $100 million than have a percentage of nothing, or own 100% of nothing, right? So
exactly.
Terry, you've done some pretty amazing things, and I really want to start to come to the close of this, but I want to talk about two things that's important to me, and I think important to people listening is on two things: your ability to speak, market yourself as an entrepreneur, and get to where you're at now, but also about your health and fitness, because I don't know if you're comfortably asking about your age, man, but you have continually looked better and better. You look healthy, you're vibrant, you look happy, you look full of life. You got a full head of hair, unlike myself. How important is health and fitness into being successful? Because you're in a high management position. You have a lot of people that are looking to you. You have a lot of probably shareholders and a president of the company that's probably looking to you perform on a high level. You're under a lot of pressure. How important has health and fitness been for you to perform at a high level and do it at the speed you have for as long as you have?
Yeah, you know what? It's absolutely crucial as you get older, and for you young people out there, it becomes a low priority until you start to hit my age, and then you start to go, "What the heck's going on?" You know, I'm in my early 50s. I'm 53, and I play. You know, like I said, I play beach football. The oldest person on my team is, I think, 28 or 29, and I play in a league where maybe the oldest guy is 35, other than me. And I'm able to keep up, which is fun. It's part of it's pride, but also I want to live a long time, but I want to live a good quality of life. I don't want to just survive. So for me, I've taken it really seriously since I've been here, and I'm able to enjoy obviously the climate and the conditions here. But it's been a very big part of my life, because I realized that if I'm healthy inside, I'm going to be healthy outside, and I'm going to be able to work at a maximum capacity. I'm feeling, and you probably can see, I got bags under my eyes because I had a 6 a.m. Zoom call this morning with an East Coast person. And of course, the one morning that I have to be on a Zoom early, my dog kept me up all night. So I'm feeling a little peakish today. But for the most part, I really, I work out every day. I go to the gym every day. And I will tell you, and we need to talk about you for a moment, because you have been absolutely inspirational in my health journey, because you saw me in the gym where I was kind of almost turning into a little bit of a meathead. I was getting, I was trying to lift heavy and try to become, this big, strong, beefy guy. And I didn't realize that I didn't like that look, but I didn't want to be that big, strong, beefy guy. But my ego was in the way, because I'd go to the gym and, I'd be trying to keep up with all the young guys and stuff like that. And I'm going to tell everybody how and I remember vividly how I met you and why I met you. And the moment I walked up to you, you were actually doing back pulls on one of those machines, right? And most guys that are your size, right, they're in the gym and they're free weighting it and they're pulling and they're just doing grunts and they're just being obnoxious. And I looked over at you during your workout, and you were using weight that I could have done in my sleep. And I'm thinking, okay, hold on a second here. Why is this guy, and then I'm thinking, okay, this guy's got a process going here. And I went up to you and I realized this guy has zero freaking ego. This guy is all about definition. He's all about consistency. He's all about form versus ego. And that was probably in that conversation, that was one of the things that you said to me in our first conversation, is you got to leave your ego at the door, right after we introduced ourselves and we started talking. And you've said that to me a number of times when you've trained me and you've worked out with me. And that's something that stuck with me. And I've loved watching your progression and what you're doing with your body composition and what you're doing. I love what you're doing right now. You look fantastic. And I love the impact you're making on people. And you have made a huge impact on me to say, okay, take it down a notch. You don't have to be this big beefy guy. And when I'm in the gym, I'm very consistent. I watch my reps. I make sure that I use great form, or as good a form as I possibly can. And I keep my ego at the door. I lift lighter. And that's really helped me in my age. So as you guys start to get older, you got to start thinking, okay, don't grunt it out and lift heavy, heavy, heavy. Just be consistent and take it down a notch. And that's giving me some longevity and makes me feel strong and, again, pretty competent in what I'm doing. I also watch what I eat. I'm very careful with what I eat, but I don't, I indulge, when I want to indulge. That's the great thing is
Yeah.
you can indulge when you want to indulge, but I try to limit, I try to almost eliminate sugar for the most part. I have one cheat meal a week. And then for the rest of the time, I'm being careful, but it becomes creating that habit. You know what it's like, right? It's creating that
Yeah.
habit of food prep, enjoying good food. And I now eat organic. So it's the little things. I read a lot about this stuff, and I'm reading a book, Eat Smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book, and he's got a great podcast, and I never realized the pesticides on these foods, right? So just the little things that you do, right, that make a big difference.
Yeah, I think people forget like we're spiritual beings having this experience, and this is just a motor vehicle to get us through the experience. But you need to make sure you oil the car and lube the wheels, like a lot of people don't think about. I'm very happy that you mentioned that as well, because that's one thing I always teach people is to leave their ego at the door. And I think I always say the ego is the enemy. That's a great book by Ryan Holiday, by the way, based on Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius from thousands of years ago. But
Love it.
that affects us all the time. It stops us from being the guy that laughs and dances at the party to taking our shirt off in front of a crowd. But it also can be the person, the ego can also make us lift too heavy because we want to feel cool, right? So it's something I always practice. I had good advice from the start to lift properly. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You want to do it for a long time. You don't want to get injured, and you want maximum results. So I'm actually very happy to hear you say that, because I had no idea that's what attracted you to come to me. Now, I want to move into like the last topic, which is going to gear into the closing. You were a Canadian real estate agent in central northern Ontario that somehow managed to get head picked to this big real estate company in California. How does that happen?
You know what, Ryan, you and we have very similar feelings towards the universe, right?
Yeah.
Activity creates opportunity. Activity creates opportunity. Some people say you get good fortune, you get luck. I'm not a big believer in luck. I believe in activity creates opportunity. So I was able to, over my tenure, I was able to meet a lot of great people at events. So I would go to conferences, I'd meet great people. And if you act properly, if you hold yourself right, and you learn your craft, they're going to find you, right? But again, activity creates opportunity. I actually reached out to a headhunter way back when and just said, hey, put me on the radar, man. I'm looking for a change. I want to get to warmer climates. I want to kind of restart my life, and I want to be somewhere where I can find that next opportunity. And I'm very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be somewhere where I could have a space where I could come up with that next thing. And I wanted to be where kind of the epicenter of, New York is an epicenter for business, but Southern California for real estate, everything starts in Southern California. It's crazy, the companies that have started in Southern California. So
Yeah. And they reached out, and the rest is history. You've been there, you got a high position, you're well respected, you're moving forward. Now, this kind of leads into something else. You're part of a company. So you're still an entrepreneur, but you're part of a company. And I feel like a lot of people, it's cool to be an entrepreneur these days. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but man, it's fucking hard. Like it'll make you sick. Like literally, I think the stress that comes with it can kill people. And do you think it's important to realize at a young age that sometimes you can go further and do a lot more when you're part of the proper team than just doing it on your own? Um, I think a lot of people miss that. Like, a lot of people get into business just to do it on their own. But I think a lot of people miss the thing that if you can be part of a team and you're a moving organism and you're in the right place, you can not only achieve more financial, make a greater impact, and also help more people than you could just doing it on your own. Do you feel that way about where you're at right now?
Yes, I think that there are people that really want to and have to work for themselves and do their own thing, right? So I think that those people, probably like me, at some point have to get back into that arena. But I do believe, my entrepreneurial spirit when I'm working in a company is exactly what you said. It's all
Yeah.
about, I'm not a leader. I'm just one of the team members, right? I'm actually leading by example. I don't ask you to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself, or that I do it. And then I ask you to do it. So I actually implement it into my business with regards to the things that I do and deploy. So it's a challenge for those people that feel they need to do it. And if you truly have that in your belly that you need to do it, you need to go out and experience it. And sometimes you might fail, but I think reading and understanding what a life of an entrepreneur is truly like, the time and effort. People think that, oh, I'm going to start up my own online shoe business and it's going to be great. That's not the way, and you know as well as I do, that's not the way it is. They need to get a deeper dive. And it's unfortunate that, our public schools and our high schools don't teach entrepreneurship as well as they should. Every student should have to go through that, because I'm sure that we miss out on really great innovators that could be great leaders.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we miss that opportunity, and they just get sucked into hey, I'm working at the postal office, or I'm going to go work, at some job at City Hall. And they're missing the opportunity where they could really, expand their life a little bit being an entrepreneur. But it is a tough grind. And I think the best thing to do is to find a mentor, right? Sit down. For those of you out there that are looking to, maybe get into business, sit down with a Ryan, or, give me a call, or, find somebody that in business that has been successful, that might be able to share with you the trials, the tribulations, the challenges. Because it's a 24-hour day job. It's, you're not going to sit back and have all your minions do your work for you. You're, like I say, you're rolling up your sleeves and you're doing the work, right? How many times have you cleaned the washrooms in your facility, Ryan? I probably couldn't even count. Yeah.
More than I've used them. More than I've used them.
Exactly. Right. And that's the life of an entrepreneur, but it's all glorified because we see, with Instagram, Facebook, and all these TV shows, we think, oh, we're a business owner. We'll be able to sit back and just, rake it in. That's not the way it is. You got to roll up your sleeves and you got to get there.
Yeah. Well, the best description I've ever heard of being a leader, being an entrepreneur, is obviously the old saying, you jump off the cliff and figure it out on the way down. But the other one is you work for your employees. They don't work for you.
100%.
And I think that's the best description, right? Because Ed Milet always says this, you got to fit people into your dream. You got to make sure their dreams are coming true and that they're happy at the end of the day. And you got to listen to what they're saying and you got to serve them, right? It's not about the old school where you whip people. So the theme of this podcast, Terry, is we've named it the Limitless Ones, which is a wide basis. It's people that are limitless, people that are always moving forward, people that are always looking for the new opportunity, people that didn't just stop at no, whether it was in sales, whether it was just being the best parent, or, going out and being an entrepreneur. For some people that feel stuck in life right now and they want to go to the next level and they want to become limitless, they want to chase their dream. Would you have, and I know this is a cliche question, but would you have some advice for people that want to go to the next level? They want to be an entrepreneur. Where do they start, man?
I'm a continuous learner. I read probably at least 2 books a month, right? And I never really was in high school. I just got by. I just in college. I wasn't really a learner, right? I didn't take it as seriously just because the classes didn't engage me. But so now I pick what I want to learn. So I'm into leadership books. I'm into health books, right? So I'm learning different things, one for personal and one for my business. So I would say try to find that content that resonates with you. You mentioned Ed Milet, and he lives like probably a mile from where I'm standing right now. Cool. And I listen to his podcast. He's a great podcast guy. I love the way he interviews. But one of the things, like if you want to be entrepreneurial, Guy Raz. I don't know if you've ever heard of Guy Raz. Guyraz. And I say Z now because I'm in the United States, right? I'm learning how to do it.
Instead of Z. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but Guy Raz, he has a podcast, How I Built This. So if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur and you want to be inspired, listen to some of it, because he interviews, all the big entrepreneurs, the billion-dollar entrepreneurs that started Spotify and Uber and Lyft and all these people, and where they started and the trials and tribulations that they went through, Luna Bar Lady and all these different things. It might sound a little bit glorified, but you'll realize that these people didn't have a lot of skill set. They didn't know the market. They didn't know the business they were getting into. They found a solution to a problem, right? And they actually went for it. And that's sometimes encouraging, right? If you have the tenacity, you have the durability to kind of see your way through it, you can do almost anything, right? So listening to things like that, finding the right content that resonates with you. John Maxwell is one of my favorite leadership guys, right? Darren Hardy is another great guy, leadership and other things. So these types of people, the Ed Milets of the world, just find some podcasts, find some books that you like to read, and dig in and be a continuous learner. And if you can continue to learn and talk to people, right? Talk to interview entrepreneurs, interview business owners. They will give you very valuable insights as to what you need to know, what you need to learn, and just, you know, find a place, find a space that you really like, and kind of stay in that lane. You know, I at one point thought about getting out of my lane and getting out of real estate and going in a different direction. And I decided, you know what, I need to stay in my lane. I've got 27 years of experience and mastery in an industry. So, you know, what can I do within my confines that I'm really good at? You know, you're in the gym business, you're in the health and fitness business, stay in that lane. You know, you going out and creating a shoe company might not be a good idea, right? Because you're going to divest some valuable energy into that, where it could be better spent doing what you are masterful at.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, is to find something you really like and go all in on it until you put your energy somewhere else as well, right? So I think that's awesome advice. Terry, thank you so much for your time, man. I hope we get to do it again, and I'm definitely going to come visit you, brother.
I look forward to that, Ryan. I really do. I look forward to that, and I'm looking forward to getting back home. I haven't been home for a couple of years, so I'm looking forward to getting downtown and getting some of those Donnelly nachos into my belly and seeing all my friends and stuff.
Yeah, I can send you some snow in the mail if you're missing the snow.
You know what? Yesterday, and here's one of the things we'll talk about California. I'll end on this, but we talk about California being all wonderful and great. The one challenge that I have with California is the traffic, because the traffic's a little bit nutty. So like to go to LA, which is like an hour north, is, you can go to LA, but it takes you 3 hours to get there, 3 hours to get home sometimes. My wife and I, we decided to go to the mountains, because you can get to the mountains in an hour and 35 minutes and you're in the snow and skiing and everything, right? So we drove 2 hours yesterday. Somebody got in an accident. I had another hour and 35 minutes to get there. So I ended up spinning around and turning back. So I spent 5 hours on the road to get no snow. So we're going to try and make another go of it.
Yeah, I've always been told that's the most beautiful part about California, is you can be on the beach at noon and you can be skiing in the mountains hours later, right? Like it's got it all. It's amazing. The environment's amazing there. Yeah,
literally.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, it was great catching up with you, buddy. And I look forward to getting back on a few months down the road to share some stuff that I'm doing. So we'll leave that one for another one.
I will, because I'm always excited to, I think the most important thing for everybody in life, this is advice for older people, is never stop learning, never stop growing, be going into the next thing. Even if it's a hobby, I think expansion is life form, movement is life. And I think it's important that we always be looking for the next thing. So I'm excited to see what Terry LeClair is up to next. I've got some exciting stuff on the go. My girlfriend and I are launching a digital media agency along with a partner of mine, and the Ryan Hawks brand, obviously, with the podcast, and some business coaching I've been working in the background, which will be coming out this week. The Elevate program, I've named it, and it's a program that teaches people from health and fitness, ownership, rituals, schedule building, brand building, logo building, building a business plan, pitch decks, finding investors, writing offers, raising money, to social media, click funnels, paid ads, how to run your social media, all that stuff, all bundled into one package and at an affordable price to help young entrepreneurs. And I'll be taking on a few people mentoring. So I'm trying to expand my way and help more people and give back, because honestly, just like you gave the gift to me, it's the greatest feeling in the world. I get so excited about helping people, and to think that I've gotten to the point where I even have some value to give back to people. I could die a happy man tomorrow, bro, honestly. So I'm really excited to hear about your stuff, and I'm excited to share what I'm doing, and we'll get back to this soon. And I will come see you in the next 6 months to a year, as soon as the travel opens up. So I'll be down there to see you, brother.
I love it, my man. Well, thank you very much for making me your first guy. I appreciate it very much, man.
It was fitting. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right. Cheers.
See you, man.